OK, SQL injection. This is also always in the top 20 software weaknesses. So I guess as of 2020, it was number 6. But basically, every year, it bounces around the top 10. So this is one we should look at. So before I can tell you about SQL injection, first we should think about why SQL is relevant in the first place and what it is. So to do that, we'll think about how web servers actually work. Now, if you think about a web server, those servers that are sending data to browsers, web servers have to often store an enormous amount of data. Imagine the server for Facebook.com. It has to store a huge amount of posts from users and images that the user has uploaded and videos that the user has uploaded. That's a lot of data that the server has to keep track of. And so usually, if you're a web server, you have to have some organized way to store this massive amount of data and retrieve it when the user requests a specific image or a video. And so what often happens is you'll have an HTTP server that takes the request, processes it, and instead of the HTTP server being the one that fetches the files, it asks some other computer to retrieve the file for it. So oftentimes, a web server isn't just one computer. Facebook.com isn't just some PC running in someone's basement. It's a big connected network of computers. So here's an example of what a real web server might look like. It's not just some guy's computer in the basement. It's a big data center. And in addition to web servers, it also has database servers. And this is where you store all of the data that exists. For example, images that the user uploaded, videos, maybe Google.com has to store Google Maps or Google Street View pictures, stuff like that. So now that we know that databases are used to store data, a real web request might look like this. So as always, we have your web browser, Google Chrome, Firefox, whatever else. I don't even know what that one is. But what you can do is the client or the web browser will send an HTTP request to the web server. And then the web server will process the HTTP request. There's lots of different software out there for processing HTTP requests. And then instead of directly sending a response, maybe the request needs to have specific images. Maybe the browser said, I want this specific picture. Or I want Google Maps to show me a map of this specific part of the world. So the web server might not have that specific resource loaded. So what it will do is it will send a request to the database and say, the user wants a map of this part of the world. Or they want this image that a different user uploaded. Can you fetch that for me? And a database server will do the query, look up the requested piece of information, hopefully efficiently, return that data to the web server. Now the web server can build an HTML response with exactly what the user asked for, send it back to the browser, and then the browser draws the response to make it look nice. So this is the way that you would request something with the addition of a database server. And the way that you would interact with the client and the web server is HTTP. That's something we've already seen. Clients or browsers and servers talk using HTTP. The thing we're going to look at today is how web servers talk to the database. So how does a web server ask a database for a picture or a video? And that's using something called SQL, which is what today is all about. OK, I wonder if I'm going to get roasted for not knowing what this is. Does anyone know what it is?
Brave.
It's Brave. OK, I'll look it up later.